Brand is fundamentally associative. You're building up associations to your brand, to your product, to your offering, whatever it is. And associations happen all the unconscious and latent level. And sometimes, particularly when you're overly focused on your competitors, sometimes the framework or the paradigm you're operating in brings with it all sorts of associative baggage, which is exactly what's happening with Adidas right now. The way that they're operating and the frame of mind that they're operating out of is bringing along with it a ton of associative baggage. It's bringing up the question, who's better, Adidas or Nike, when Adidas should really be about them and not even bringing up Nike? That associative baggage is holding back their brand, in my opinion, and they should be taking a little bit of a different approach in order to get rid of that associative baggage of the comparison between Adidas and Nike. Let's dive into what's actually happening. So I've talked about Nike losing a lot of its brand over time. They doubled down on performance marketing for a while. Now they're back to brand marketing. A lot of the brand campaigns have gotten a lot of backlash, and Adidas is very much aware of this. And what Adidas is doing is kind of running creatives that really, in my mind, kind of mimic the old Nike. And that's great. That's good stuff. But is that really what you want to be doing? Mimicking the old Nike or trying to parrot Nike or trying to be the new Nike? Because as soon as that's the paradigm you're operating out of, as soon as you're operating out of the paradigm, let's take over Nike, you're bringing Nike into the equation where you don't want to bring Nike into the equation at all, which is what I mean. That framework that you're operating out of brings with it associative baggage that, as a brand, Adidas doesn't want. So let's run through. Like, here's one of the ads that they're running. It's called, we all need someone to make us believe, and it's about people, kids and athletes uplifting each other and believing in each other and uplifting one another to show, like, hey, you can do this. You got this. We have a person around us who's going to uplift us and make us believe in ourselves, which to me feels very much like a Nike ad from, 10 years ago. That good, feeling of athletics and competition that Nike kind of conjured up. That's what Adidas is doing here. But by doing that, by being in that paradigm, that Nike paradigm, the first thing I think is, oh, that's kind of similar to what Nike used to do. But why do you want to, as a brand, bring Nike into the associative equation at all? And this continues. If you look at their YouTube channel, so they have these new ads, but they also have like a day with James Harden, and NBA All-Star Takeover. They're leveraging the power of the basketball player and the influencer, and yada yada yada. That's Nike's playbook. All of that in my mind just reminds me of what Nike used to do a lot of, which again isn't what I think Adidas actually wants. And you see this play itself out. So if we're looking at a tool like Also Asked, which looks at Google's People Also Asked, which is a great tool and a great feature to look at to get a little bit of understanding about how people are looking at your brand. So one of the questions that the tool pulls up is Adidas still cool? Because there was a whole question about Adidas not being cool. And the sub questions are, is Adidas or Nike good? And there's a whole bunch of comparisons to Nike. Is Nike a good brand? There's not even Adidas in there, right? Does Nike last longer than Adidas? Fine, compare. But is Nike a good brand? Has nothing to do with Adidas. But it just shows you in people's minds, there's a strong associative connection with Adidas and Nike, and Adidas is reinforcing that with some of the things that they're doing. You see this again with one of the other questions that showed up is, why is Adidas so popular now? Because again, Adidas is back up. It's popular again. And then the sub question, which is popular, Nike or Adidas? You go through all of this, and Nike keeps kind of popping up. Again, is Nike a good brand? Keeps popping up over and over again, which again is a signal to me that Adidas should take a little bit of a different approach. And you see this even when I pulled the SEMrush data. If I search for the keyword Adidas and the word better, I get, is Nike or Adidas better? Why is Nike better than Adidas? Is Adidas better than Nike? Adidas, Nike, Adidas, Nike, Adidas, Nike, over and over again. And it just is a signal to me that Adidas needs to change the paradigm. And the creatives and the video content it's putting out doesn't do that. It just reinforces it. Let's take a little bit of a shift. I want to look at Hoka, because Hoka, in my mind, isn't really associated with anything. It's kind of its own thing, maybe a little bit with On and yada, yada, yada. And when I run Hoka, the keyword Hoka through Also Asked, I get, do podiatrists recommend Hoka? right? So there's this clear quality and authority around Hoka, and the sub questions are just about Hoka. But you have like, but is the Hoka Bondi or Clifton better for walking? Those are both Hoka brands. Like those are both Hoka shoes. You do have some of the comparison stuff, like when you look at the keyword or the question that people also ask of what is so special about Hoka shoes, right? So yeah, is Hoka better than Nike? But that's not the predominant theme throughout all of their stuff, right? When you look at SEMrush again, and you type in the keyword Hoka and add better to it, so I get are Brooks or Hoka's better? Which is better, Hoka or On Cloud? Are Hoka's or On Cloud's better? It's not this like you have the better thing, but it's not. It's a different kind of comparison. It's not to Nike. Hoka's operating in a little bit of a different space that doesn't have all that emotional baggage with it. Because Nike, by the way, is emotional baggage. Nike is a brand on the decline. You don't want that kind of baggage. So yes, you're always going to have the comparison between your product and your competitor's product, but which one you're being compared with is also super, super, super important. By the way, if I ran the keyword on Google, Adidas, Reddit, I get the first thing I get is Adidas better than Nike. So there again with the whole Nike thing with Hoka, I don't get that. I just get Hoka stuff. And that's sort of the problem. Adidas should be doing what Hoka does. And I'm not saying it needs to have the same kind of brand that Hoka does, but if you look at Hoka's YouTube channel, they have a whole community focus. They have a whole unique approach to what they're doing that doesn't remind me of somebody else's brand. And no, Adidas shouldn't be doing what Hoka does and trying to replicate that or trying to do that. Adidas should be doing its own thing. And by the way, just as a parenthetically, I feel like the story is in the numbers. Year over year, the Q2 revenue increase for Hoka was 34%. For Adidas footwear was 17%. What Hoka's doing is working, and they don't have the same budget and the same reach and the same viability on the creative side and the spend. They're building their brand in a very different way, and it seems to be working. And I'm not saying 70% growth for Adidas isn't good. It's great. But I think that it should be higher. And I think part of the reason why it's not is because they're still on that paradigm comparison of Nike and Adidas. And that's not where Adidas wants to be. And what they're doing, what Adidas should do is shift the paradigm. Don't go back and do a better version of Nike, because that's kind of what it feels they're doing right now. Go in there and do something different. Be the better version of yourself. I can't tell you what Adidas should be doing in specific, because what I would do if I was consulting with Adidas is sit down and figure out, who are you? I don't know who you are. I just see you as a Nike competitor. That's who you are to me. And that's a terrible place to be for a brand. They need to do some soul searching and figure out, who are we? What makes us different? What are we all about? And that might be very meaningful. But the next question is it differentiated enough from Nike? Because if the answer is no, do some more soul searching. So that's my best advice to Adidas. I can't tell them exactly what they should be doing, but they should be doing a heck of a lot of soul searching around who they are and making sure that's differentiated enough, because all they're doing now is conflating that old paradigm of Adidas and Nike, and it's not a good place to be for the brand long term.